Hello, Mr. Foot.
Hello.
I'll be interviewing you for your time in service.
Okay.
What got you into the Marines?
Well, growing up, when I was really young, about 4 or 5 years old, I saw my uncle joining the Marine Corps, and it was kind of cool seeing him growing up, seeing him as a Marine. Spent a couple of summers with him, so I got to understand the Marine lifestyle. And when I got through high school, I was ADHD all through high school, so I had a hard time finishing school, and I knew I wouldn't be able to get through college, so I chose military service. Haven't always looked up to my uncle, and I just decided to join the Marines.
How long did your uncle serve for, and what was his rank?
He joined straight out of high school, so he was a private to start with, the very lowest rank that you could possibly be, and he served for 24 years. He served as enlisted, then he went to warrant officer, then he became a commissioned officer, and he eventually retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Why the Marines? Why for you? Why not the Army? Why not the Coast Guard? Why not, Air Force?
Growing up, I was always super competitive. I always wanted to be the best at everything I did. And you ask anybody who's the hardest, who's got the hardest boot camp, who's the toughest of the military, and pretty much anybody will say the Marines. Everybody knows it. The military knows it. When they plan operations, they send the Marines into the hardest spots because they know the Marines are the toughest. And so it was a natural fit for me. I was super competitive, and the Marines were the best.
What were the boot camps like?
Boot camp is 13 weeks of pure torture. It's they drive you physically, and then they mess with you mentally too. Because one of the things that they do mentally is they want you to lose your sense of self. You have to think of yourself as part of a unit, not an individual anymore. So you never say I or me. You always say this recruit. It's kind of funny, but yeah, it's really, really tough.
Were the training camps like the boot camps, or were they different? And if
No.
they were different, can you explain?
Training camps come after you finish boot camp, and each of the training camps has a specific purpose. Boot camp's purpose is to make you a Marine. So it teaches you the basics of the Marine. It brainwashes you into the mentality of a Marine. It gets you physically ready to be a Marine. And then after that, each of them have their own purpose. One of the ones that I did was mountain warfare training, unit movement. So the entire, I think it was a 6-week course or 4-week course, was centered around getting a platoon across the mountains and how to survive in the mountains and stuff like that. So there was a lot of rock climbing, rappelling, using rope bridges, some survival stuff like how to trap and skin a rabbit. The test at the end was a part of it was a 50-foot night climb. You had to climb a cliff in the middle of the night with almost no light. So the purpose is completely different. It depends on what the training camp is.
What was the funnest, in your opinion, the funnest thing you did at the training camp or boot camp?
The most fun that I ever had was probably the mountain warfare training when I did the night climb. I love rock climbing. But also anytime that I was able to do my job, because I was intelligence, you couldn't do it every day. So when you got the opportunity to get out and actually do your job, it was really, really cool. You felt like you were actually doing something, like you were accomplishing something.
What was the worst thing, your worst experience in the boot or training camp?
All of boot camp is tough, but there's certain times that will always stick with you no matter what. One of those times was the gas chamber. Every Marine has to do it, and you have to do it every so many years, but you do it in boot camp, and it's really tough. They fill a room with tear gas, and the whole purpose is to train you to use your gas mask correctly, so that if you're in combat and somebody tries to use a chemical or biological agent on you, you know how to put your gas mask on and use it correctly. So you have to go in there, and you go in there with your mask on, but a couple of times you have to take it off, and you wind up breathing in the tear gas. Well, when you come out of the gas chamber, finally, you tend to have tears streaming down your face and snot hanging down to your knees. It's a pretty disgusting thing.
Let's see. What was your lifestyle like before the Marines, and then how did it change during and after being a Marine?
Lifestyle for military is completely different from some civilian life. So before that, I was a typical high school kid, kind of an underachiever. But once you join the Marines, you become government property. Your lifestyle is pretty much what they say it's going to be. If you're single, you live in the barracks. A lot of guys love living in the barracks. It's a lot of fun, hanging out with your friends. Some of it is the same, hanging out with your friends, having parties on the weekends, and all that stuff is the same, but it's all got that military flair to it. So no matter what, you're still military. And if they tell you have to go somewhere, suddenly you just have to go there. I was told a week before I had to leave that I was leaving for 4 weeks.
Were you ever deployed?
I wasn't deployed. Unfortunately, I got injured before I could get deployed. I was supposed to do what they call a med float, where you go on a ship and you float around the Mediterranean Sea for 6 months. You go into different ports and stuff like that. But I was never able to do that, and I served before the wars. So.
Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, when I got injured?
Yes.
Yeah. When you're in the military, when you're in the Marines, like I said, everybody's very competitive, so you tend to ignore pain a lot. Any athlete or anybody in the military will tell you that, there's some pain that you can ignore and just keep going, but others that you really shouldn't. I ignored some of the pain that I really shouldn't. What happened was the arches fell on my feet, and that messed up my legs and back to the point that I couldn't really run without severe pain.
How long were you training for in the boot camps?
Boot camp is 13 weeks. After that, you go through MCT, which is Marine Combat Training. It's the very basics of being an infantryman, but it's for everybody that's not in the infantry. That's about 4 weeks. And then after that, I spent a little over a year in Monterey, California, learning Russian. And then 5 months in Texas, learning the classified part of my German.
What field were you in?
I was cryptologic Russian linguist. I was signals intelligent. So my job was to collect intelligence in a specific manner, and if needed, accurately translate between Russian and English.
This field of intelligence, was this your first choice?
It was actually a second choice. I wanted to be intel, but there was a separate field of intelligence that I wanted to be in.